be great stuff. So as we start to populate our live viewers here, I want to welcome everybody to this week's Business Unusual. It's our weekly webinar that I and my co-host Peter Klein have been putting on since quarantine pandemic started. It's 5 months, folks. 5 months, if you can believe it or not. Who would have thunk? But here we are. As we have in all past and upcoming episodes, we try to bring you the industry leaders who are going to be able to help us get a handle on some macro recovery issues as well as micro recovery issues here on Long Island. And today we have a real powerhouse duo to help us talk about the economy and economic development as a whole. Natalie Wright, who it still shocked me that we hadn't met until this morning. I've heard so much about you. She is the Commissioner of Economic Development here in Suffolk County, and she is the chairperson of the Suffolk IDA, two incredible organizations that are certainly helping steer Long Island to the point it's at and through this. And my old friend Dave Calone, who looks 10 years younger since I last saw him. So he's great. He's the CEO of Jove Equity Partners. And the co-coordinator of the Suffolk County Forward, in addition to, to other things. And guys, we're going to have an open forum. But one thing I want to do is say we named this Business Unusual because nothing is usual. I look at the stock market today, and when the stock market was at 25, when the Dow was at 25,000, maybe 6 weeks ago, we did an over/under as whether it was going to hit 20,000 or 30,000. First, right? And we're north of 28,000 right now, which is crazy. And it's on the heels of, and I just want to read you 3 weird headlines from the Wall Street Journal today, okay? Headline 1, the CBO estimates the federal budget deficit shrank in July. The deficit shrank in July, which is crazy to me. I don't know how with all these stimulus dollars and everything else that it shrank, but it shrank. Read it on the Wall Street Journal. We can talk about that. Second weird headline, we're celebrating that unemployment rate fell to 10.2% in July, where we added 1.8 million jobs. And if you guys remember in the height of the Great Recession in 2009, the world was ending when we hit 10% unemployment. And now we're celebrating that it shrank to 10.2%, which is crazy. And weird headline number 3 is, losing money has now become a winning pandemic tax strategy for some companies, including FedEx. The more money they lose, the bigger the tax write-offs they're going to have. So this is business in an unusual time. So, I just want to open to you guys. Those are my weird thoughts, but I'll open to your guys. Just if we can get a macro view of what you guys are seeing from your from your viewpoints, and then we'll get into some micro issues. So Natalie, you can start. You have a great view from your roles. What are you seeing?
Sure. So thank you, Joe and Peter, for having me on today. I would say that the business unusual is unfortunately a very fitting term. We have experienced throughout the last 5 months conditions, characteristics, events that nobody ever anticipated, and we're still moving through them today. The return to school is what I can only describe as sort of an avalanche, I think, of pent-up wonder of how we're going to move through this and how things are going to lay out as a result of this, and how we'll continue to adapt as we monitor transmission rates and the return to increased economic activity. And so it's really, and the county executive said it very well, this is much like a hurricane, but it didn't come and stay for a couple of days. It's now been here for 5 months, and we don't see that departure in sight yet. There's not a clear line of when we can say it will be over. And so working through that, and it's impacted every single industry in some way, shape, or form, and it's impacted every single community across the entire nation and world. So there's no geographic, political boundaries here to the effect of the pandemic. And so dealing with that is an immense challenge, to say the least. But within that, there has been incredible resiliency, adaptation, new solutions, and even in many cases, leapfrogging to, I think, a new space that many companies, industries, individuals never thought that they would find their self in, but has put a new perspective on a lot of things. And I think it'll be interesting to see how the impacts of the pandemic shape our daily life, moving past the closure of the virus and the transmission. So how will this shape the world of work? How will this shape land use patterns? What takeaways will permanently reside within our population and behavioral changes that will stick with us for years to come as a result of this pandemic? So those are some of the things that I see at a very high level. And obviously, we're keenly focused on recovery, getting back economic activity. And I think at this point in time, it's really sustaining the economic activity that we've been able to achieve and continue to move forward and increase economic activity to a pre-COVID level. The last thing we want to see is having a resurgence of the virus here. We've put in a lot of hard work to keep it, and the rates are low. And that is because everyone is working together collectively to help achieve that. And to see a resurgence that would have to result in any re-tightening or increased closures or restrictions would just be a very, very difficult thing to have to move through. So I think, that's a keen focus of ours, is to continue to increase that economic activity safely.
Yeah, and I had the a town hall with the county executive where I hosted it through HIA-LI a couple of months ago, maybe 2 months ago, and I'll tell you guys, all at Suffolk County have been doing a tremendous job of leadership to to get us through this, and that's very well appreciated here from the business community. I can rib you a little bit, as I sort of did with the new president at Stony Brook University. Here you got elected chairperson of the IDA, you became commissioner of economic development, and we went into an economic meltdown, right? So it's like, don't take it personally, but good luck with that one. I mean, really,
good timing of that. Yeah.
I know we had some really, really, really great, and that's not to say that we're still not going to be able to achieve some really great things in the coming years, but it definitely presents both a professional and personal challenge, right, to run through, and looking forward to that. But I came from a Sandy recovery background, so I'm not unfamiliar to disaster recovery. So it's a bit of a familiar space for me, unfortunately.
Yep. And David, so I'll tell you, we started out this year thinking we were geniuses. Our Q1 was way up, right? And we were thinking about lobster rolls in Tahiti, and then what a shame, what a heartbreak going into Q2. So just kind of wearing your hat as an investor and somebody who's been keyed in nationally, what have been your thoughts and observations as sort of a macro?
Yeah, no lobster rolls and no Tahiti, I think, is the bottom line. You mentioned the market earlier and how it's pushing up, closing in on 30,000. The Dow is, in some ways, and look, Peter's really the expert in all this stuff, but it is crazy to see how we basically round tripped from, what was it, mid-February or so when the market started to sell off to now in 6 months. We've almost round tripped in terms of the return to the market. And, a lot of that, of course, is pushed up by, the Fed and obviously the federal government with a tremendous amount of stimulus, both fiscal and monetary, coming from the Fed. I moderated the president of the New York Fed came to Stony Brook virtually about 2 months ago, and I moderated the Q&A with him, and there seemed to be no end in sight to their willingness to basically push the balance sheet of the federal government. I think, there's this relatively new theory called modern monetary theory, MMT, and we seem to be living a real life experiment in it. It's certainly inflating the market. But I think the unemployment numbers, what really matters, but what's happening in the real economy, and we're not anywhere back, obviously, to where we need to be, and I think that is obviously a huge challenge. I do give a lot of credit to our Long Island businesses and businesses across the country who are really innovating, being creative, and just keeping the lights on. And not all of them obviously have been able to do that. And I think a lot of them are really on the knife's edge right now. They've struggled to get back, and they're doing what they need to do. Hopefully, most of them with regard to keeping the virus at bay and social distancing and all that. But make no mistake, we have lost, a lot of businesses in the last couple of months. And if we don't get a handle on the virus and we don't get the economy back moving, we're going to lose a lot more, because there are a lot of businesses that are right on the edge. And that's why we came up with these Suffolk County programs, which we can talk about a little bit later under the leadership of the county executive. But I am seeing out there, there's certainly economic activity. I was in Colorado 2 weeks ago for work, and there's definitely a view around the country that people are wanting to get back to work, needing to get back to work. I will tell you that the view from around the country, and I do business around the country of a number of companies I'm involved with, is that New York has done an amazing job in general. Obviously, we have had our tremendous difficulty early on, but I think if you talk to people around the country, business people, they would trade our the leadership we have here and what's happened now and where we're at now with anyone around the country. They would be glad to be in New York. Now we need to take advantage of that from a business perspective and smartly get back into the offices and get back to work as best we can. And I think we need to also, the school opening issue is critically important, not only for the kids, but also for supporting our economy and allowing parents to go back to work and not having to have the childcare issues that would happen with throughout the spring when kids were home. So obviously it's also done smartly. The virus is going to tell us rather than us telling the virus, but I think our business community, particularly here on Long Island, has done a remarkable job in trying to survive. And I think the challenge is still ahead here in the fall.
Yeah, I think I liken it to that opening scene of Saving Private Ryan, where they were storming the beaches at Normandy. That's what it was like here in New York when the pandemic hit us. I mean, it hit us unbelievably, right? Like nobody knew what was happening. And super, super proud of how all of us have sort of gotten through this and really kept it down. But I agree, David, we got to get things open and moving. I mean, it's like a surreal world we're living in right now. So if you have on CNBC and you see the stock market going up, you think everything's hunky-dory. You flip a station up and you see riots going on in other cities, and you're not sure what's going on there. And then you see an unemployment rate north of 10%. And that's another dimension we have to look at. And listen, I've been representing Long Island businesses for 30 years. It's a very scary time right now. There are many, many businesses that if they don't get moving soon are definitely not going to make it. So Peter, what are your thoughts here? You were 20,000 before 30,000 guys. So I'm about 1,500 points away from beating that over and under.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still holding to the under. I mean, as you said many times, Joe, thank goodness that we are in this economic or market situation, because without it, many folks would be really in bad shape. I would like to be a voice of reason, though, to the everyday investor who's watching or listening to the program. There are, in our view, some speculative underpinnings to this market. You've seen that with the stock of Kodak that just jumped up recently, and others that have that are bankrupt companies that are trading stocks. So I am concerned a bit. I mentioned it before about the casinofication theme in this market, and I would advise investors to be balanced on their approach and to be careful with respect to the amount of risk that they're taking.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, if this market was at 13,000 or 14,000 right now, there would be so much more pain, I think. Feeling, people at least just saying, well, at least my IRA and my 401k is not in the toilet at this point. So I think mentally that helps. So Natalie, one of the big challenges, so pivot has been the big word, right? Every business has had to pivot, and there are going to literally be industries, I think, that are going to disappear, and there are going to be new industries that are going to reappear, and workforce training, economic development is going to have to pivot along with that. So as you're watching this unfold, what are you thinking? How are you seeing, the government's role going to be able to keep up with that? Because entrepreneurs move very fast, right? They move very fast.
Yes. So I would say that, from the beginning, we realized that this was something that had never been faced before. And so the county really took a leadership role under the county executive to push information out to the businesses. Think back to the beginning of March or the end of February when COVID-19 was just a word that wasn't ingrained in the intensity of everyone's mind as it is today. And understanding social distancing and these things that have been, words that we hear every day, tens and tens of times each day. So really to be able to push out information to inform the business community of how to operate safely, how to develop a response plan, how to think about what they might need to do to pivot their businesses. And so we developed the business recovery site, a website where we have resources for businesses. And that went through the operational restrictions that the governor had laid out through reopening. And we continue to post information and webinars and resources there for businesses. And then we also had the business recovery unit where businesses could call in and speak to actual live people, understanding that it's important to be able to speak to another voice on the phone, to get information, to get resources. And so that was stood up in the middle of March right away. And so that was a key initiative that we did to continue to push information out. And I think moving on to your question with regard to pivot, we've done several different things to try and incorporate different opportunities where businesses can be able to survive through this event and hopefully once again thrive once this event is over. So, Dave can certainly speak to the Suffolk Forward initiative that we've done. We've also done, we did a food truck webinar, which was highly attended. So this is, we have restaurants that are closed, but food trucks are a good opportunity to be able to move to different locations. They're socially distanced options. It's an outdoor eating experience. It's a relatively low threshold for investment as compared to a brick and mortar store. So whether you're an entrepreneur trying to move into this space or a restaurateur that's looking to pivot into a new line of work, that was something that we put forward. So providing information on how they can get permitted and work with the Department of Health to be able to move that forward. We also helped advance outdoor dining opportunities as well. So automatic approvals from the county in coordination with the town there. Also, also contributing towards providing loan and lending opportunities. So of course, there's the PPP program. There's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program that are offered by the small business administrations. We also contributed to the New York Forward Loan Program through our Economic Development Corporation. And we contributed $250,000, which leveraged $5 million in New York Forward loans for small businesses. And so we've really continued to look at different opportunities that we can provide unique resources for businesses and provide information and other ways to help them through this event. And then from a long-term perspective, we've really been looking at, like I said previously, how does land use patterns change? What will this do to our real estate market in terms of office space or retail space? Retail was already a very fluid environment of where the future of retail was going to go pre-COVID. And now moving through COVID, we've seen the impacts even more greatly. And so where are there opportunities to revitalize those investments that we have in parcels, in infrastructure, our malls? What can we do to revitalize those areas moving forward?
Yeah, that's all great stuff. And I want to get into that in a little bit, because I had we had Jim Coughlin on and talked a lot about real estate, Jimmy from TriTech, and I want to talk about that. But Dave, the Suffolk County Forward program, right? So clearly what's driving the stock market more than anything are technology stocks. Clearly business has become much more dependent and reliant on technology. I was in the video conferencing business 100 years ago when the video conferencing business could never take off, even post 9/11, and yet now here we are. I mean, Zoom will become part of the workforce forever, just because it's so damn convenient. So talk about tech and talk about Suffolk County Forward and talk about all the cool things you're working on in that regard, right?
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, it's as you said, the technology is driving the stock market right now. I think the big five are putting up, the vast majority of the gains you're seeing, at least in the S&P 500 right now. And that's just indicative of the underlying role that technology is playing in all of our lives. And that is, clearly we're all on Zoom meetings. We're here today. And we're seeing people using technology. It's, as Natalie alluded to, it's changing the face of the workforce and how we work, as well as where we work, and all that is, important conversations from a land use perspective, particularly on a place like Long Island, where how we use our land is sort of indicative of our values and very much part of our way of life, given that we're all here in one space and nowhere else to go since we're surrounded by water. But nationally, I think you're seeing, the same sort of pattern, right? I mean, I have a number of companies around the country that I'm involved with, and we're all still not in the office. Everyone's remote, and we're finding that for the vast majority of folks, it is a better solution, probably more efficient. They have a better quality of life, work-life balance. They're able to be with their families a little bit more. They're not commuting, and we're seeing real productivity. And I think I have one company I'm involved with that's in the conference space. Conferences and events all of a sudden disappeared, but they pivoted to virtual. And now everyone's doing these virtual conferences and events. And in fact, the company's had its best couple of months ever because they supply technology that actually is adaptable to the virtual world. And I think you're seeing a lot of businesses pivot like that. Here on Long Island, we created in Suffolk County, we created the Suffolk County Forward program to basically help businesses who are many, technology, where technology can play a role, but even when places lower technology, places to help upgrade their tech. And County Executive Calone and myself, along with Natalie, as well as Commissioner Rosalie Drago from the Suffolk County Department of Labor, helped put together this program. We did it also in conjunction with Stony Brook University. They were tremendously helpful. Tremendous national resource, but a regional resource, obviously, right here in our backyards here in Suffolk County. And Dean Manny London and Professor Garrett Wolf and Anne Marie Scheid and others have helped put this all together. But basically what it is, guys, is it's 5 programs that basically help touch local businesses. And
we can put the slide up.
And I'm happy to talk about them if you want me to.
Yep. Yeah, let's put the slide up and sort of walk through those.
Sure.
There you go.
So you're about to see the 5 programs that we put together under the banner of Suffolk County Forward. Again, this came out of a conversation with the county executive, County Executive Calone, in the early days of the pandemic. And he said, look, we're going to face an immediate health crisis, but it's going to be an even longer term economic crisis. And he was obviously exactly right. And so we said, how can we use our regional resources to help support our local small businesses and not-for-profits? The gift card platform was developed by eGifter, which is a local Huntington-based company that does gift cards on the internet. Tyler Roy is the CEO there, and under his leadership, they helped put together this effort to kind of allow people to buy local. The great thing about gift cards, of course, is you're actually helping drive actual revenue into the companies. Yep. And for them, it's a negative cost of capital, right? Not lending money without paying interest. You actually get your customers' revenue, and eventually you deliver on that service, when people decide to redeem the gift cards. So that's available on the website there. We have over 150 Suffolk County businesses, a lot of restaurants and others that you can actually buy gift cards, support them with your dollars, give them immediate revenue today through that link. And actually, as a result of the request of the Town Supervisors Association of Suffolk County, eGifter has put together they're breaking it down into townships. You can actually just click on your town, Smithtown, Islip, wherever you live, and be able to click in and see the businesses in your township that will have that have gift cards. Now, one of the great things is that if you are a business in Suffolk County that doesn't offer isn't currently on the platform, the e-gift, because of their business, and they did this for free, by the way, as a great community service. Because of their business, they actually know where to look to kind of find which companies offer gift cards on their websites. But if you do not have that or want to offer gift cards, we can help you, get your gift card connection onto that platform if you're not on there already. So restaurants, businesses that offer online gift cards, we can help you, create that and make sure it's on this platform to help local businesses, be supported. The second thing, the next three programs that you see on the screen, the Small Biz Tech Enhancement, the Pandemic Shift Business Workshops, and the Virtual Expert Network, are all done in conjunction with the Stony Brook University College of Business. Tech Enhancement program is basically student and professor teams from the business school as well as engineering department come together to help advise local businesses on how they can upgrade their tech to make themselves more competitive. And that can include things like helping them put together remote payments. Like, people will want to do the contact payment because of COVID, but contactless payments they can implement for businesses. They can make sure your websites are mobile friendly. Obviously, a lot more people using their phones and smaller devices. They can help restaurants set up delivery order systems, whether it's Uber Eats or Grubhub or DoorDash or whatever. So if we have businesses who are listening in Suffolk County that are interested in help in getting their tech enhanced to allow them to be able to, better compete and to get more revenue, that program is great. Again, students from the business and engineering departments working together under with the tutelage of a professor. The third item is the Pandemic Shift Business Workshop. So that's a 6-hour program for free for our local Long Island businesses. It's kind of 4 sessions, each about an hour and a half. And they're groups of about 20 businesses go through together. And basically it's, how do you think about your business model? What do you need to do to shift in this time frame to and pivot to be more successful? And it's a chance to kind of learn from fellow businesses, as well as there are professors from Stony Brook University and other experts who are involved in helping give instruction as part of those workshops. One of the great things is I want to give a shout out to Bank of America and Investors Bank, who are now funding these business workshops. We're going to have 10 of them over the rest of the course of the year, with about 20 to 30 businesses in each one. And thanks to their help, we're able to put on and help, somewhere between 200 and 300 local businesses go through this program to help them take a big step forward. The Virtual Expert Network is the fourth item there on the screen. And that is basically professors at Stony Brook University, College of Business, as well as outside experts are lending their time and expertise for free to our local businesses. This is kind of thing that people would pay, bigger businesses here on Long Island pay a lot of money to tap into the expertise of the colleges. This is being offered, for free to our local businesses, and you can sign up for office hours with these experts. And we have professors in finance and accounting, HR, supply chain. A lot of demand we've had for social media and marketing. Good folks also offering legal advice. And obviously, Joe, your firm has done a tremendous amount of work in helping our small businesses here on Long Island with that, free help in a pinch. And I know you're part of this as well. So this is an opportunity for people to tap into that free resource of experts. Do an online Zoom call, explain your issues, and you can get free help from our professors and other experts in the area. And the last item is the job board, which the county put together under Commissioner Rosalie Drago's leadership, the Commissioner of Labor, that basically helps identify. There's hundreds of postings on the job board of businesses locally here on Long Island who have the need for to hire employees, and then employees or potential employees themselves can also post their resume so employers can find them on the website. So I encourage you, if you're either a business looking to hire folks, or if you're someone who needs a job and is looking for opportunities, to go to the scnyforward.info website. It's really well designed and a great matching opportunity to create employment that way. So, I think the bottom line, Joe and Peter, was this effort was started a few months ago, but the idea obviously is it's going to continue. It needs to continue. We have tremendous economic needs. And look, the more we can keep businesses open, the more we keep people employed, the easier it is going to be to get that bounce back that we all need to continue over the next few months.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, and that's great work, and that's the power of public-private partnerships always coming together and really getting things done. When this first hit, Dave, you mentioned that we launched a COVID hotline where we were just giving free advice to any small business that needed help, because there was so much flying around with PPP and HR issues and all this other stuff. And we thought we'd get a few calls. It was like a tsunami of what do we do, right? What do we do? Where do we go? But, we all have to make sure every single business that can makes it through this. We have no other choice but to do that. So Natalie, let's talk about real estate, right? It's a very important issue here on Long Island, and as chairperson of the Suffolk County IDA, Suffolk IDA is an incredible organization. You guys are always top IDA in the region. You're huge partners of ours in HILI, which we appreciate so much. And for viewers who don't understand how an IDA works, what they basically do is they trade, non-productive taxes that a business would pay, like real estate taxes, to help them hire more people and create what I call productive taxes, right? So you can have payroll taxes, you can have economic stimulus, and they do that, and they've done that incredibly well. The challenges, the obvious challenges, right, are if the jobs aren't there, and people aren't able to get those hires done, it's going to be challenging. So what are you seeing at the IDA level, and how are you guys sort of gauging where this is going to go? And then I want to talk about sort of mixed use and things that are going on here on the island, which I think are very helpful as well.
Sure. So at the IDA, I think you gave it a good summary. I like to say that the IDA provides temporary benefits to elicit long-term and permanent results. Yep. So we give temporary benefits whether it's a sales tax exemption on construction materials, or a property tax abatement for a limited period of time, or a mortgage recording tax exemption. Those are the three primary benefits we provide. But we do that in order to develop undeveloped parcels or underutilized parcels, to retain employers here on the island, to support growth and addition of new jobs for employers here on the island. And so it's creating good jobs, it's retaining opportunities. We here in Long Island, I think everyone is keenly aware that it is an expensive place to live, it is an expensive place to do business, and it's a difficult place to do real estate development. And so we have fierce competitors across the nation from other locales that are trying to actively recruit our businesses away. So it's keenly important for us to retain those industries here and those businesses here on Long Island to provide good jobs for our residents. And so with the IDA, we've really seen that, as everyone else, businesses are struggling. And so it is, we still see that there are opportunities for growth and for IDA applications coming in, but it is a difficult situation. So, we had the Huntington Hotel was just one example that has been at a recent board meeting that we discussed. They're moving forward with their project, but obviously the hotel industry and hotel development is an incredibly difficult endeavor to undertake at this time. We also have other ones that have significant employment. And so retaining employees here, retaining hundreds of employees, is a win for the county at this point in time, when we have lost hundreds of thousands of jobs here on Long Island. The economic impact report that Nassau County and Suffolk County did jointly together at the time of the report had noted 220,000 unemployment claims, and they expect that for a net upwards of potentially 375 job losses could be seen through 2020 and 2021. So, those are staggering numbers. And so retention is certainly a strategy at this point in time, while in a more a more beneficial climate, obviously we would like to see growth. And we're still focusing on that where there are opportunities, of course. But I think it just shifts the perspective a little bit.
Natalie, for our listeners, I'm sorry, Joe, for our listeners, can you unpack how A finances these projects? Is it, do you have bonds that are issued?
So yeah, so it's usually a lease back. So that's how they would have, the IDA would retain the ownership and then lease it, and then at the end of the period, then they would be able to recap the ownership of the property or whatever it might be, the improvements to the property. We also did recently launch back in, I would say early April, a PPE sales tax exemption program. So understanding that manufacturers, there was a great opportunity to pivot or to expand their production lines into the manufacturing of PPE. And so we have a program currently where manufacturers can take advantage of those sales tax exemptions basically on new equipment purchases, new software purchases, anything that they might need to invest in to be able to expand into a new business line or expand their production capacity if they're already making PPE or other COVID-related items, materials, and equipment. So that's a really great program because we want to bolster where there is opportunity to expand business here on the county. And then in parallel with that, we also recently launched our Ppe Provider Platform. So what this is Long Island businesses that obviously need to buy PPE, and what I've coined the term for lack of anything else is socially distanced equipment and materials. So we have personal protective equipment, but then we also have social distancing equipment and supplies, whether it's the little decals on the floor or the dividers that you see at the cash registers. Those are all purchases that businesses need to make. And so the Ppe Provider Platform allows a business to go onto that site and search for local suppliers of PPE and other social distancing equipment and supplies. And on the flip side, those providers of such items can post their items on the platform. So it's a connection to incentivize local investment and keep that money here instead of going to Amazon or to, you know, a non-local provider. If we can spend our money here locally, that's exactly what we want to be doing.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you guys at the county, it's just a constant crushing of sales tax loss of revenue, right? With first see it with Amazon, and now with these malls being closed and retail, just and look, we represent a lot of national retailers, and it's just the world is absolutely changing. But when we were speaking with real estate developers, this whole concept of mixed use is now taking on. You know, we started it in revitalizing some of the downtowns here, and even in the industrial park or the innovation park. Terry will kill me for calling it the industrial park. The town of Smithtown today has another public hearing because they are considering a zoning overlay to allow mixed use of residential retail within the park. Which is perfectly situated because of the sewers. But I mean, how we talk about land use shifts, Natalie, how critical is it? And you guys must be sort of discussing it at high levels of what zoning is going to have to look like post COVID, right? Because with new technology, with Zoom, with fear, with all sorts of weird stuff, it's just going to dramatically shift, I think. What are your thoughts?
I think you're correct. And I was on a call earlier today with the Regional Economic Development Council, and you know, we're seeing that, and we're looking to collect that information on what we expect the permanent, like I said, the permanent impacts of COVID-19. We may land in a space where some businesses never go back to a full in-person workforce, that remote work is a viable and preferred solution for some portion, if not possibly a majority of their workforce. And how does that
You pause there for 1 second, honey, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's a major statement. And
yes,
it has major implications for many industries on Long Island specifically. And that's going to take some major pivoting, because just think about the work hubs of Melville and Garden City and Islip Airport area. You know, there's a lot of activity there that if those folks are not in those buildings and not visiting the lunch spots afterwards, the coffee spots during the day, you know, there's a lot of ancillary industries that can be impacted from that.
No, I completely agree with you. And you start to think about all of those accessory industries. And I was talking with somebody and he was sort of saying it in passing, but I think it's a good example of this sort of cascading effect of changes that we're seeing. As he said, oh, I'm saving hundreds and hundreds of dollars on dry cleaning.
Yeah, yeah. But
that's hundreds and hundreds of dollars of one person because they have been working remotely and haven't had to wear a suit jacket every day and bring their suit to the cleaners. That money has not gone to that local business. And so that's just one example of many. And I think you're exactly right on the luncheons and the other, you know, stopping off maybe for a happy hour drink after work with your coworkers, right? Those things aren't there when we are in a predominantly virtual work remote environment. And so I think seeing how that shakes out, I mean, I will say that there is something to be said to having face-to-face interaction and a face-to-face work environment. And I think we'll need to see where that goes and how that shakes out. Going back to the mixed use point that Joe had mentioned, certainly, you know, I think that our downtowns are critically vital components and we need to sustain the businesses there. We need to keep our main streets alive and active and continuing to do mixed use development where we can provide opportunities where people can live and work and play in one space is certainly critically important. And, you know, if you can layer on the transit-oriented development and the public transit opportunities with that as well, that's even greater. But the HIALI, you know, with the new mixed use proposal, they're providing an opportunity where residents will hopefully be able to possibly bike or walk to work for a portion of those residents that live in that mixed use development and have some retail and restaurant and recreational opportunities nearby. And I think that predominantly for Long Island, which is a very large commuting population, many people are familiar with either doing it themselves, driving east or west, hopping on the Long Island Railroad to commute into the city, whatever it may be. I think the value of being close to home, whether it is in a work remote environment or just providing an opportunity to live closer to where you work, there's an incredible value in that. And so these live, work, play, these mixed use environments help facilitate that. And I think there's a lot of value placed there.
And Natalie, pre-COVID, people thought we were a little cuckoo when we were talking about mixed use inside the park. Post-COVID, we look like geniuses now. So we appreciate all the support the IDA gave us on that feasibility study. So one of our guests was John Corrado from Suffolk Transportation, and we were talking to John about opening up the schools as well as mass transit and transportation in general, right? And so we look at the domino effect. The MTA is screwed. I mean, I just don't know, sort of absent massive bailouts, how they're going to get revitalized. But John had an interesting point, and I'll just throw it out to you guys, and that is, you know, maybe some of the marketing we should be doing from Suffolk counties to New York City and letting people know that there's tremendous office space available here in Suffolk County, so that they can be having their workers who are used to riding the Long Island Railroad have office facilities out here in Suffolk County. Because I got to tell you, we expanded our space right here in our Ronkonkoma office. We're right at the entranceway to the airport. March 1 was my rent commencement date for my new space. Guess what? I haven't been able to do anything with it, right? So if I had an accounting firm or a law firm or an insurance firm from the city with workers out here that just wanted to get out of their home office and get some space, I'd love to sublet out a bunch of that space to to them. So transportation, we've talked about it. I'd be interested to see how you guys feel about transportation. And then I want to talk about the schools opening, because it's critical to get that unemployment rate down, I think, to get the schools opening. So Dave, you want to weigh in, and then we'll shift to Natalie?
Yeah, just going back to what you guys were talking about just a moment ago. I think we've seen Long Island has been moving in the direction, obviously, of mixed use. I chaired the Planning Commission for Suffolk County from 2008 to 2016. And one of the very beginning of my time as chair, we pushed through, and it was a difficult fight, what was the Four Corners development in Patchogue, which was actually the Coughlin's Tri-Tech development. And it was, it was a mixed use right in the heart of downtown Patchogue. And now you see that's looked at as kind of a shining example of what's possible. But in 2008, when that came through the Planning Commission, that was a big fight to get that done. And then, we saw, I was an advocate of many projects over my time as chair with regard to mixed use. But one of the challenges I think we have as a region is, the project, I left the Planning Commission in 2016. The projects that we were approving then are just now really being built. You look at downtown Port Jefferson and others. So one of the challenges I think we have is creating more flexible zoning. Historically, zoning has been this what's called Euclidean zoning, where you have your industrial, you have your commercial, you have your residential, and those spaces were all separated. It kind of comes from the industrial age, where you kind of didn't want your factories next to your housing. But now we all know that, first of all, we don't have the heavy industrial anymore, where we have smokestacks sending up smoke in too many places. But also, people want to be close to work and want the ability. And I think actually post-COVID, it's going to be even more the case. I think actually our downtowns and the places where people don't have to commute to work are actually the places where people are more likely, I think, to be willing to have an office. In other words, they may work from home half the time, but if there's an office space that I could walk to, or I could, it's a very short drive, I'm more likely to have office space. So I think actually mixed use has become even more important in the post-COVID age than before. For instance, at the Innovation Park, people might say, hey, look, I can live there and I can work from home, but I could also work to the office and have maybe a conference room, or if I need to meet people, I can do that. So I think what we need to be doing is creating more flexible zoning and asking our towns to kind of consider, and villages to consider that more flexible zoning, so we don't take 4 years. And I know, Joe, you've been working on the mixed use and stuff in Smithtown for a number of years. Business is someone, as you all said earlier, moves fast. Entrepreneurs move fast. Government doesn't generally, but we need to create the tools for government to become a little more flexible so they can move a little bit more quickly to adapt to situations like the one we're going through. And in terms of transportation, I think that's also key, right? I mean, there's been a push, and County Executive Blown's been a leader on this, and others, about putting more development near transportation. But again, having that flexible zoning that we put in place near transportation will allow a future developer to meet the needs more quickly and not have to wait for a planning commission and a town board to approve something in 2016 and then have it actually get built, several years later. You're lagging way behind where the market is in that situation.
Yeah, I listen, it's got to change and foster collaboration. The budgetary shortfalls are just going to be too steep. Politics will get in the way. And, Natalie, I'm sure your heart breaks the way mine does when somebody's bragging about not spending a lot of money in dry cleaning. I look at it and say, well, there's a guy who owns a dry cleaning office who isn't getting paid, and there's no sales tax coming into the county. So
how about the person that owns the dry cleaning, the actual real estate where the dry cleaner is?
Right, and there's a landlord not getting paid, and there's a tax bill that might go into default. I mean, it's heartbreaking. So schools, we touched on it earlier, Natalie, right? I'm a big proponent of safely trying to get the schools open. I think our numbers in New York are very strong. Just at my firm a lot, I have a fair amount of, on Long Island, two parents have to work to support a household, and I have some single mothers. So what are you seeing with that in the county level, and how critical is that, do you think, to our recovery?
I certainly think that it is incredibly important to our recovery. We cannot, we need to have child care, whether it's pre-school age children and school age children and beyond. We need to have places where children can go to allow parents to be able to work and do their professional endeavors to earn a living. And we need to do it safely. And so the school districts, I know, have been putting forth their plans and coordinating with the state to do their reopening plans and implementing. My husband's a teacher, so he's going to be going back to school here in just a few weeks. He's a high school teacher out on the island. And so, you know, we'll see there, his school district is doing a blended model. So they'll be doing cohorts of 2 days a week. Monday and Tuesdays, one cohort, and Thursdays and Fridays, another cohort, and then remote for the remainder days that you're not in person. So they're working through it, but they've put forth plans, and I know the other school districts have as well, of how they'll contact trace, how they'll, you know, watch out for symptoms and symptomatic or sick individuals and be able to do quarantining and isolation as needed. And so I'm hopeful that, you know, with the same diligence that business owners have put forth in reopening the economy, they were invested, they know their operations, they know how their users use their space and their facilities. They know their operations best. They are most informed to be able to operate safely. And I would say that the school districts are very much in the same position. They understand how the students and the teachers and the staff use their spaces and how they can modify their practices in order to do so safely within a COVID-19 environment. Of course, underlined by the guidance that is put forward by the state and various departments of health. But so I think we'll just have to see how it moves forward and be flexible as in everything else that we've done up until this point in time. But I'm very hopeful that it will be successful and that we'll see transmission rates remain stable through the reopening. That is my hope.
Yeah. So one of the things, we have some upcoming guests who are going to be talking about mental health and the effects of sort of this, you know, us not being sort of as social as we have been as a society. So I'm curious, Natalie, how, you know, so you become the Commissioner of Economic Development and a pandemic hits, and there must be this incredible tension that you feel, right, of how do you balance safety versus how do you get economic development moving? And so how are you managing all that yourself personally? It's got to be a tough spot you're in, right?
Yeah, so our department is roughly about 75 people for the Department of Economic Development and Planning. And within that, we do a wide range of different initiatives. So we do the planning, we do real estate for the county, we do big transformative capital projects. We also have Gabreski Airport under our portfolio, among other things. And so even just from a departmental management perspective, you know, managing a team of 75 remotely and keeping people connected has certainly been a challenge. But thank goodness we have Zoom. Thank goodness we have video conferencing. Thank goodness we have telephone calls, and trying to keep those open lines of communication amongst staff. And I think the same thing is been, you know, happening throughout the business community and the larger economy. I think a really great example that has been tremendously innovative in trying to pivot in a very difficult climate are the gyms. They have, you know, really leveraged the virtual experience to, I think, a place that we never envisioned it in being, whether it's through personal training or group classes on Zoom. It's really been, it's been quite inspiring, and it has both for me personally, you know, I take Zoom gym classes because of the COVID experience, but it's great because it still is a sense of community there. And so that's incredibly important to try and maintain that through all of this.
Yep. And Dave, I think you had a point to make that I
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm on the reopening task force, advisory task force for my school district, the Three Village School District in Northern Brookhaven. And I would just say that the challenges are enormous. We've had these meetings with the principals and parents and administrators and teachers, and it's just, there's a lot of unknowns. And I think I think the bottom line, I think there's pretty strong consensus that if we got to get our economy moving, we got to have at least the younger kids back, because those are the ones who need childcare, right? The elementary kids. Once you get into junior high, you know, may not be preferable, but they can, you know, stay home alone if needed at times. But getting our elementary kids back is really critical. And they're the ones you can kind of, you know, they stay in one classroom for the most part, so you have less moving around, so that's less of an issue. But I think there's a real, you know, issue with regard to our older kids. You know, older kids are used to having more crowded classrooms. We don't have like in kindergarten where they have fewer, far fewer kids because the teacher has to keep control of them. But you then have, our older kids who are, more packed into classrooms and passing each other in the hallway. And, you can't imagine a more ripe opportunity for COVID transmission than the 5 minutes between classes in a junior high school or high school hallway. So I think, it's important that there be some sort of a hybrid where we have the ability for parents who are concerned about that to have other options, and having that mix, like Natalie was saying, with half in, half out, I think can work well at the junior high and high school age, also because they have far more familiarity with technology. The younger kids, because of the childcare issues and because of the lack of technology ability that most of them have, really need to be back in as best as possible, as often as possible. And so I think school districts are trying to figure that out as best they can. Now, every school district is a little different in terms of the space they have and all that. But this is, very challenging in many different ways.
The technology companies really, the companies that are in that space, that e-learning space, have really positioned themselves for this situation. So there are solutions. There are good solutions. I think you're right. It's a balancing act between the, in class and online.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to the desocialization impact, and that's why I'm glad we're going to have some national healthcare experts on to talk about that. I mean, we don't know. This is all unknown and all uncharted. So we're gonna wrap it up. The final comments. The only rule about final comments are that they have to be positive, right? They have to be positive. We want to leave everybody on a high note. So, Dave, your final thoughts, final comments?
I just want to, commend Natalie and the county executive and everyone on their team for working with the business community to put together these Suffolk County Forward programs. We can really help small businesses, for free, in ways that help them pivot and get through this time period. One thing I'll just leave you guys with is I mentioned the pandemic shift workshops, those cohorts of 20 or so online, local businesses working together and learning together. The next one is going to be starting in early September. So if you go to the website that Joe and the team had posted earlier, they are accepting applications right now for that next cohort of local businesses to go through that training program. So I would give a shout out for that. Thanks so much for the time, guys.
Yeah, of course. Natalie?
Yeah, so again, I'd like to thank you guys for the time and, the great partnership that Dave and Stony Brook University has shown us in terms of the Suffolk Forward initiative. I will say that there are good things that have come out of the pandemic. Though there are many negative things that have come out, there are certainly good things, and they are lasting and what I believe will be permanent effects. I have never worked closer. While we were partners before, Rosalie Drago and I now at the Department of Labor, we are, I think, permanently linked now forever, which has always been a very intertwined relationship, right, between labor and economic development. But the importance of those two efforts really coming together, and both of us utilizing our perspective, organizational histories and professional histories to be able to really push the county forward, I think is really exciting of where we're going to go. And that we've made tremendous progress over the last 5 months here in New York State. We should be incredibly proud of where we are today in relation to what we've seen across the country and other states and communities that are struggling. We have held our transmission rate consistently. And as I said at the beginning of this call, that is in part to everyone's consistent and dedicated effort to socially distance, wear a mask, wash your hands. Everybody knows the key talking points, but this is temporary. It will subside provided that we are committed to the solution, and we are committed to creative solutions to helping businesses and communities and residents weather this storm to make it through to the other side. And what the other side looks like might be a different landscape than what we expected in March, or maybe what we even expect today, but we will get through it, and we will hopefully, be in a more informed and hopefully utilize this to leverage and leapfrog into places that are better than we ever expected, even though there's tremendous difficulty right now.
Yep. Peter, give us something positive.
Well, I'm just jazzed about my county, Suffolk County, doing such great work, coming together, and public-private partnership, and making and pivoting the companies in Suffolk County, doing so well comparatively in face of a pandemic. Just makes me feel as if whatever it is thrown at us, we can handle.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I mean, we have right here two of the best and the brightest, really showing how Suffolk County. And I tell Steve Balone every time, "Hey, Steve, we're not farm country anymore, right?" And the world
Yeah.
might want to think that Suffolk County's farm country, but we really have the best and the brightest working hard for us. And we on the business end appreciate that very much. I think government gets a bad rap sometimes, but you guys are doing a great job, Natalie, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk and to meet. So folks, coming up next week, we have Jeffrey McQueen and Lisa Gilman, who are going to discuss mental health and behavioral issues. 8:25, Suffolk County DA and former Suffolk County Police Department Commissioner Tim Cini, who's going to talk about the state of law enforcement here in Suffolk County and nationally. And then September 1st, we have Bruce Stillman, the CEO of Cold Spring Harbor Lab, who's going to be talking about some COVID clinical trials going on and what's going on in that world. So great stuff coming on. Great episode, guys. Really appreciate the time. I know you're all super busy, but the business community is relying on you guys, and I am sure is inspired by all the great work that you guys are doing. So thanks so much for everybody, and we'll see everybody next week. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank you
much.
very much. Bye.
Bye now.